This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, I have an actress of a variety of horror films on the phone with me today. Many of these I grew up with. And she's a lovely woman. I'd like to introduce Rutanya Alda. Is it Rutanya or Rutanya?
Rutanya. Yeah,
Rutanya, okay. Okay. I sometimes it goes either way, so.
Yeah, it's gone a lot of different ways, believe me. A lot of people go, how do you pronounce this? And I said, well, just kind of pronounce it. It's Rutanya, but anyway, I have fun with that name.
Yes, and before we conversed on here, you mentioned that New Brunswick's a beautiful part of the world.
Oh yeah, you know what? Because I've been within miles of New Brunswick. I took a trip several years ago up to Maine and that part of the world. I thought it was just spectacular, really spectacular country. And one of these days I'll make it into the Canadian border and go up to New Brunswick. But I thought it was just, there's parts of the world that are so memorable, and that's one of them in terms of the area. I was very thrilled to be there.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, we're 1 hour ahead of Toronto in the time zone, so I'm 1 hour ahead of you. So.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh!
Mm-hmm.
I thought we were. Well, that's what a New Yorker knows. Not. I thought we were the eastern part of the timeline. But see, you learn something every day.
Yeah, I'm an hour ahead of New York. Yep.
Wow. Okay, that's good information. You've just alerted me to that. We are not the eastern. We're not the eastern. You're east of us. So that's good information.
Yeah, we're east. Yep, we definitely are. Now, I was looking at your credits, and I got some non-horror films I want to talk about, but you got a lot of horror films to your credits. I was wondering, do you have a preference for horror films? Is that something you enjoy?
No, and I'm not necessarily. I mean, I just happened to get cast in them, so I wasn't seeking them out, so to speak. It's just that the parts came up, and I went up for the auditions, and I got the part. So it was purely what do you call it? A quirk of fate that I got in them.
Well, it's interesting because for the most part, with the exception of Girls' Night Out and the Amityville To the Possession, many of your roles are smaller roles, but you stand out. And is that how you pick your parts, or is it just the luck of the draw?
I think it's the luck of the draw, really, honestly, and the opportunity to create that part. Like, for example, George Romero's movie with Timothy Hutton.
The Dark Half.
The Dark Half, exactly. Mm-hmm. I'm very bad at forgetting titles, and this is not new. So I'm not suffering from dementia. But I always, unless the title really grabs me, I forget. But I remember the movie very well. And I remember my experience with George Romero very well. And it happened to be those two scenes in that movie. One of them was, of course, very, very upsetting to George, which really shocked me, because I thought, George Romero makes horror movies. It's a part where Timothy Hutton actually savagely murders me.
Oh.
I'm his agent, his literary agent. Well, the other half, he's the dark half. But so we had this. It was this scene that kind of stands out in the movie because it's so real. And when we saw the cast and crew screening of it, George took me aside and he said, "Rutanya, I have to keep editing this scene down, because," he said, "it really upsets me. I'm really upset by this scene." And I said, "But George, you make horror movies." He said, "Yeah, but this is really upsetting." So he said, I've cut it down a little bit. So, I mean, it's still upsetting in the movie, of course, but it's just the luck of the draw. I mean, that's the role I went up for, and that's the role I did. So.
I did a tribute to George A. Romero last year. Actually, it was a year ago, January, and had his widow on the phone. I met her at Horrorama in Toronto when I went there for that event.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's a lovely woman.
Yes.
She's a lovely woman. You know, I was invited to the private memorial up in Toronto also. I couldn't go. I was doing something. But the thing about George is, which I found kind of surprising when I worked on his set and worked with him, is that he was the sweetest, gentlest person. He was so gentle and so calm and so loving, and it was just like being family on his set. And you know, sometimes you think horror filmmakers are, you know, into a different kind of personality. Mm-hmm. But he was just a calm, gentle, loving soul, and I miss him.
Yeah. No, I've heard great things about him. I had Judith O'Dea on here from Night of the Living Dead, too.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. So I've heard all good things about him, and it was really cool to have his widow come on here when I met her in Toronto, so that was fantastic.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so glad you had her on. She's, you know, I'm sure gives you great insight into a lot of things that because of her experience with living with George, it's much different insight than, of course, what I contribute.
Yeah, well, you've worked with quite a few standout directors. I know you were. I don't remember the film, but you worked with Sam Peckinpah, of course. You know.
And Pat Gary and Billy the Kid.
Oh,
yeah.
There you go. Because I remember he was the guy who made the Wild Bunch, which was a really awesome action western.
Wasn't it? It kind of set a new what do you call bar in kind of the West. I know when it came out. It kind of rocked the film community, or, you know, people's reaction to it, so to speak. But he was a person who had his own vision, a very complicated man, and I really adored him. I saw him about a month or two before he died. He was in New York doing the Julian Lennon music video, and he said, you know, I'm doing this for the money. I need the money. And he said, because I've got another script. He said, I want you to be in it. I've got another script. I'm just going to finish writing because I want to do that. And, you know, I'm just making the money so I can do that. Of course, you look at Julian Lennon's video that Sam directed, and it's brilliant because everything he did, he threw himself into that work. So I mean, that's not to put down the fact that he did the video for money. It's to say that people outside the business don't realize that a lot of times people are not flush with money.
Yeah, that's
they have
right.
to make a living.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And of course, you worked with Larry Cohen, of course, with The Stuff. Yes,
Larry. Well, that's enough of that.
Oh, not a good experience?
I'm not used to being screamed at the whole time. I'm not used to working with somebody that screams at me. I think if I were to work with him again and knowing that he's a screamer, it would be all right. It was just totally unexpected, so you're not set up for it. I mean, I worked with a commercial director that years ago, a wonderful director, the first time in, I was warned by someone that he's a screamer. So then I could prepare myself mentally for it, you know.
Okay.
But I wasn't prepared when I went to work for Larry.
Okay.
I was not prepared. I really should. I was. Had I known, I think I would have probably done better. But, you know, sometimes it's important to get that information out.
Yeah.
Like with George Romero, now, if he'd have screamed at me, I would have said, oh, yeah, he makes horror movies. But George, on the other hand, was just the sweetest, gentlest guy. So, I mean, that was a delightful surprise and a wonderful experience, really, a lovely experience to create. I mean, some people respond to screamers. They do their best work with them. You know, I'm not one of them. It kind of shuts me down. I get scared.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just my personality, so to speak. If I had a different personality, I would have reacted differently, I'm sure.
And of course, you worked with Brian De Palma in 3 films. Now, I've always liked Brian De Palma, and you were in his 2 earliest films, Greetings and Hi Mom, which of course Robert De Niro, very, very early in his career.
Yes, very early. I think second film or something like that. And well, I loved working with Brian. I mean, that was just a joy. It was a true guerrilla filmmaking. Greetings and Hi Mom, it was the sequel, so to speak. In fact, it's funny because a friend of mine, a wonderful actor named Bob Airy, just saw the Hi Mom. He just sent me an email saying, "Oh my God, that Big Black Baby scene! I've never seen anything like it. I've never ever seen anything like it." And I thought, it's a 20-minute scene in the Hi Mom movie, which I am in. And I said, well, where did you see it? He said the Film Forum, which is a wonderful theater down on Canal Street, off of Canal Street, that shows these classic kind of films, older films, and I didn't know it was showing there. But, working with Brian at the early stages was so much fun because I love improv. Mm-hmm. And both those films are totally improv. I mean, if you look at a Greetings script, I have it somewhere in my closet of 20 boxes. You just have a page saying, she steals a book and he catches her, she stands. That's my character. She stands and she meets him in front of this building, and they talk about. He talks about how he's a filmmaker, and she talks about how she played King Lear and Lear. I mean, and then they go to the famous strip scene where he takes her to his apartment, and it's very funny. I mean, it's funny. You don't know that these things. I mean, it was funny when I did it. The audience was funny. The critics at the time, the big critics. I forget the one woman. She wrote books and everything. She just raved about it. And then Greetings actually got the Silver Bear at the Berlin Film Festival.
Okay.
But the reason it was fun to do is that movie's made for I think $25,000 or $30,000 on short ends. Now, people said to me recently, filmmakers said, "What is short ends?" Because that's in the olden days, quote, when people didn't use all of their 35 millimeter film up, and they had 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 minutes left of the film, and so the short ends were sold to people that maybe needed 2 or 3 or 4 minutes of film. So Brian bought these short ends, a lot of them, and he would say to us, he would say, "You only have 3 minutes on film to do this scene, to improvise the scene." So we knew we had to get it out in 3 minutes. You knew you didn't have a lot of time. So in the Greetings thing with the stripping scene, when the film runs out halfway through, it actually works in the scene because he's filming. And he says, "Oh my God, I ran," and when he goes back, "I ran out of film." So when the film runs out, it really does run out, and Brian had to reload, and he said, I only have 4 minutes left. You guys got to finish this up in 4 minutes. So, and the same thing with Hi Mom. That was a stolen shot in an elevator that Brian's friend was super on. So he let us do the elevator shooting. We had an hour of time, so we had to shoot that thing. We shot it in 20 minutes. So it's all improvisation, all just ultra fun and challenging because, you're on the spot. You got one take. You got to do it. So, I mean, my early memories of those 2 films with Brian are just terrific, and the actors were wonderful. Every shows, were authentic and real, and could improvise, and it was just a lot of fun, really fun, and so I love Brian.
What were your memories of De Niro that early in his career?
Well, he was just another actor. He was a good actor, another actor. I thought we were all good actors. Mm-hmm. So I didn't, I never. And you don't think of, oh my God, Bobby's going to be a star. You don't think that way in the early stages of people's careers. It's like that's another colleague. another buddy, actor buddy. That's how I thought of him in the early times.
And of course, Garrett Graham in this as well. Was he as funny back then?
Yeah, he was always funny. Garrett, I love Garrett. Garrett and I really didn't have any scenes together. But, I enjoyed him off the set and everything. He's just a great guy. I wish I had a scene with him, but he was really funny and sweet.
Okay, it's Hi Mom. Jennifer Salt is in this. Jennifer Salt, of course, was in Sisters.
Film Sisters, with Margot Kidder.
Margot Kidder, and of course she was in Midnight Cowboy as well.
Yeah.
Haven't seen her in a while. But
she quit acting a long time ago. She went into writing, and of course she's perfect. Her father was Waldo Salt, the great writer. I think he wrote Midnight Cowboy, if I'm not mistaken. But he wrote a lot of great films, and I think that Jennifer wound up moving from New York to Los Angeles, and I think she just decided she liked writing better, because the life of an actor is can be a very cruel life sometimes, because you don't go out enough, you don't work enough, you feel like you don't work enough. So it's she did this. I think the same thing. She's a very talented writer. The same thing that she's a talented writer, and she had that was what she chose to contribute. So I think it was not that long after Hi Mom that she decided to do that. I remember speaking with her at a restaurant called The Source briefly, and she said, I'm writing now."
Okay. Well, I remember her fondly, especially, I remember her Midnight Cowboy, and I definitely remember her in Sisters,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. She's terrific, yeah.
Yep. And, of course, the third wheel in the De Palma trilogy for you was The Fury. I really like The Fury. And that is a film that he made just after Carrie and just before Dressed to Kill. And you get to work.
I'm in Dressed to Kill too.
Huh?
I'm in Dressed to Kill too. You just don't see me. You hear my voice. I do Angie Dickinson's orgasm in the taxi, and I do her scream in the elevator.
Oh, do you really?
And I am Michael Caine's answering service operator. So you hear my voice in 3 different things. Yeah, I went in to do it. Brian asked me to do that in looping it, so it was fun.
Oh, William Finley's voice can be heard in Dressed to Kill as well. Dressed to Kill is my favorite De Palma movie.
Yeah, it's great. It's a real thriller. It's terrific. I mean, you're on the edge of your seat.
Yes, that is my favorite De Palma movie. And I really like The Fury, and what a great cast. And you didn't have a big part in it, but you did get to work with some heavyweights in it. Kirk Douglas, who's, of course, still with us, over 100 years old.
Isn't it wonderful? It's amazing. God bless him.
I guess all that running around in The Fury paid off for him.
Well, he was in good shape.
I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure he's still in good shape for, what is he, 100?
101 last I just...
Oh, God bless him. Oh, man, that's great.
Yeah. I mean, you had Kirk Douglas, you had John Cassavetes.
Yeah, I love John. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and
he passed too soon. But I had worked with him in Rosemary's Baby because I was Mia Farrow's photo double and stand-in. So I got to be very good friends with him on Rosemary's Baby, John Cassavetes. So I have a very fond memory of him.
I love Rosemary's Baby. I had Ernest Harada on here last year. Rosemary's Baby. He was the Asian fella that's taking the pictures at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you worked with a good cast in that. Carrie Snodgrass, of course, who... I unfortunately, she's gone too early, too, but...
Yeah.
Did you ever let her take your mail for you after that?
Very funny. No.
She's not a very good letter carrier, is she?
That's funny. Well, there are wonderful people. Carrie and then of course John, who are now deceased, and God bless Kirk Douglas. He's still doing it. And the cast was wonderful. I think I was supposed to be in another movie of Brian's, but unfortunately ABC. I was doing an ABC movie a week, and they wouldn't let. Even though I had 4 or 5 days of downtime, Brian wanted me to come in and shoot his Phantom movie with. Who's that one?
Oh, Phantom of the Paradise.
Yeah.
Oh, with Jessica Harper.
Well, who's the main lead? The guy, he's wonderful. Can't remember his name.
Paul Williams.
Yeah, Paul Williams. I was supposed to play his girlfriend, who was aged, but then he's still young. So it was a nice scene, and ABC wouldn't let me out to do it. I think it was supposed to fly to Dallas for a day's shoot and then fly back, but then Brian said, "Well, if you can't do it, I'm just going to cut out the part," and that was never shot. So.
Oh, that's too bad.
Too bad. One of those things. But they wouldn't let me out of the contract.
Oh, gee, for one day, and that was...
Yeah, they won't let you out. Because what happens is, even though I had 4 days off, all of a sudden there could be a sudden change of the weather or whatever, and then they call you in. They actually, get very little notice. Maybe the night before something's changed and they need to call you in. So they were doing it to protect themselves, really. And, I understand. It just sucked.
And of course, the absolutely gorgeous Amy Irving was in The Fury.
She's so gorgeous. I just saw her. Oh, when was it? Earlier? Not earlier this year. I'm still not in Chua one night. Last year in the fall, I saw her at an event with her husband, and she's still gorgeous. She's just as gorgeous as ever.
Yeah, she has beautiful eyes, and
yeah. Well, she's still gorgeous.
Yes. Well, she was in Steven Soderbergh had her in a movie late last year, and right now I can't remember the name of it. But
that's okay. I'm with you. It's hard. Titles are like, unless a title really grabs me, it's like I don't remember them, but I remember the story and I remember the actors. But titles, like, a lot of times escape me, so don't feel bad.
Well, this was The Fury. Had a lot in common with his previous film, Carrie. Yeah. Only this time, Sissy Spacek, you got Amy Irving, and of course that concluding scene that I won't give away for anybody who hasn't seen it, but you really get to see Amy Irving go mad.
Yeah. Well, don't give it away in case you
no.
See it. I'm one of the. Unless somebody says to me, "Give it away." I really want to know. Then I'll do it. But yeah, sometimes those little surprises are wonderful to have in movies.
And of course, Fiona Hughes.
Yeah.
Yep. She had a turning performance.
Yeah.
A very fast turning performance. Yep. There's so many memorable scenes in that movie, and of course, tying this all together, we have Charles Durning, who was in. He was in Hi Mom. He was in The Fury,
and the super at the beginning, yeah.
And When a Stranger Calls.
No, Charlie was a good friend of mine. He was just so memorable and so friendly in life, and so he's a great storyteller. You meet Charlie, he'd always tell you a story. So how can one not love Charlie Durning? I miss him. He used to run into him all the time, and he started out. I think Hi Mom was one of his first films, if I'm not correct. But he's a terrific actor.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, I never understood why When a Stranger Calls got so many bad reviews, because I really liked it. I mean, it has a lot in common with John Carpenter's Halloween, which came out the year before. But I think that I love Halloween. I also love When a Stranger Calls for a lot of the same reasons. I saw the remake of When a Stranger Calls, and I didn't care for it.
I didn't see it. I didn't feel like I needed to see it. You know, you see the original movie, and they do all these remakes, but I'm not big on remakes. I feel that the original film was the film that was made. Unless it was made badly, I don't think there's a reason for a remake. But I didn't know it got bad. I don't read reviews. I mean, I just don't read them. So I know it made a lot of money. and whatever, the movie was made for $1 million or around $1 million, so it made a ton of money. The director Fred Walton had made, this is a day when, it's a different time, he had made like a 10-minute short of it with unknown actors, and at that time he showed it around the studios and stuff, and then Barry Croft, I think it was, he said, "Oh, I'll do it," and they kept the cost very low, so consequently, I think it made a nice profit.
Yes. Well, one of the problem I had with the remake is they basically just took that first 15 minutes of the original and stretched it into 90 minutes. And then and then when you see the killer, he's just some faceless guy in the back of a police cruiser. It's like, I hated that. I found it insulting. One of the things I loved about the original When a Stranger Calls, and I'm not giving anything away here because this happens early in the movie, you find out the killer, of course, is played by Tony Beckley.
Yeah, he was great.
And how interesting was that character? Because at the beginning of the movie, of course, we discover he murdered two little kids with his bare hands. And then we find him when he escapes from the sanitarium. It's like he's dangerous, but yeah, he's also very weak, because you see him get beat up at the bar he tries to hit on
Colleen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an interesting portrait, I think, and I think that was lacking in the remake.
Yeah, I like it when films get into not just the surface of a character, the cliche, thing. I like it when a film is more complicated about the person, even though they may be considered a bad person. But nobody in life ever thinks they're bad. I mean, it's not like I'm really bad. I'm really bad here. I'm going to be bad, Greg. No, I mean we all, even bad people have their issues, and I think in film what he did is they presented the guy. It was more complicated. Yes, he was a horrible killer. He was crazy, but it was more complex than just let's get this guy, bad guy.
Yep.
And I think that's what makes a film interesting, when you don't just do the one-dimensional. You kind of give the people their own world. You start to understand their own world. Not that you want to be in that world, but you understand that world, and you understand the complexities of people.
Yeah, and there was a powerful scene in it where he's looking in a mirror and he's getting flashbacks of the blood all over him where he murdered those two children, and he's completely naked and he's like down on his knees weeping in the washroom, and
yes.
And I'm sitting here looking at this and I said, this is really intriguing. This was lacking in the remake, because the remake was just, let's just do a cash in,
Yeah, I think that's a lot of times what happens is movies are done well and they figure they'll do a quick cash in. I think that's a perfect expression that you just used, and that's done quite a bit, the cash ins. But why not make a movie? Why not make a movie that's going to be kind of good?
One remake I did like was the 1978 Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That one did it right.
Yeah, I think when people decide they want to do it, they want to make a good movie instead of just cash-in movie. I think it makes a big difference. I think, let's try to make it good. Let's try to be good with it. And I think it shows if people try to do it good.
Yeah. And of course, When a Stranger Calls, of course, a lot of people talk about that opening 15 minutes and that closing 15 minutes, but I loved all the middle stuff with Tony Beckley as well. And
yeah.
I thought he gave a great performance. It was very complex.
Yeah.
What were your memories of him?
I just met him. I didn't work with him, so I just met him briefly on the set. A very nice English chap, and a wonderful actor. I wish I'd had a scene with him. He would been a good partner to work with. I love actors that are talented. They're much easier to work with because they give you a lot. So, so I just met him briefly. I thought he was a lovely English gentleman, and was playing this part. Really committed to playing the part, which is great.
And what's even more interesting, Carol Kane, who was the babysitter at the beginning of the movie, of course, she's known now for comedic roles. She's really good in this movie.
Yeah, well, she started out with Hester Street, which was a kind of a serious film. And then she went into comedic things. She's just a talented woman, and I think comedy is actually her forte. But she's been around a long time. She's a real pro, and this is kind of her career now.
I kind of wonder, if she had been the angel with the wings from Scrooge, would Tony Beckley's killer, have any chance?
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, I loved how I'm trying to think of the director of When a Stranger Calls, Fred
Walton.
Fred Walton. I love the shots of the clock, the ticking clock, or the fudge sickle melting in the ashtray. The intensity, and everything's quiet. She hears the ice cube tray, and the phone rings, and and she's, have you checked the children? And I love that moment, where she's talking to the cops, and she's worried, and I love it. She picks the phone up and she goes, "Leave me alone." She goes, whatever her name was in the movie, she goes, the killer is inside. The calls are coming in from inside the house, and you just see the camera zoom in on her eyes as they close, and she's like, "Oh my goodness!"
God.
Yeah, but I loved it. She kind of creeps towards the door, and you can see that door open upstairs in the shadow, and she's trying to get out, and the door is braced for the chain. She opens it up, and I love that shot. She opens the door, and she screams when she sees Charles Durning. What a perfect cut as he comes through the door, an investigation going on.
Yeah, I think Fred made a really wonderful film. I think he and the DP and people, it's all a collaboration.
Yes.
So I think he had a good DP and a good editor. I think the editor can make or break your film, and so all of these people that come together to make this film, I thought it was a perfect fit.
You had a hard time getting your husband out the door before the babysitting session.
Carmine and Genziano, a lovely man. He's had a nice career. I mean, people would know him if they saw him. So
yes.
He's done a lot of TV also.
Oh, I love When a Stranger Calls. You got some other horror films I got to bring up, but you had two very larger roles. Girls' Night Out, for example, that'd be a slasher film that would probably be forgotten today had it not been for the fact the killer is wearing a bear mascot and had the knife claws before Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. Well, we shot that film in 3 days.
Oh, yeah?
And they never still paid me for it. They owe me money for it. So, I don't want to talk about it too much. Except my big scene is with Hal Holbrook, and I think it's a really good scene. But sometimes you have memories of people that I think actors are cheated out of money a lot.
I hear it more than you know.
More than people know, and that's one of those cheater films, as far as I'm concerned. Although my scene, I like my scene with with Hal Holbrook. That's all. I ran into Hal last year, or year before. He's getting on, and we both reminisced. So, but he got paid.
Yeah. Well, his son was in the film, so.
And his son was in the film, who's now become a therapist.
Okay.
He's a doctor. I think I saw him also. I ran into him at a party, and he has become. He said he realized acting wasn't for him, so he went to became a medical doctor and then a therapist. So that's his life now. And he said he's very happy. He's glad he tried acting, but he wasn't for him. So, but that's why Hal actually made the appearance in the film, is because of his son. You know, they thought they would give the Hal in the film would give him some name cachet, and it did.
Well, you know what? I hear this a lot. I'm good friends with an actress out of Toronto who it was in a film that I really loved, but I found out the Canadian actors were pretty much cheated.
Yeah. It's like it's horrible when it happens. It really is horrible. It's just unconscionable to me that you would cheat the actors that really made your film for you. So I prefer not to talk about that movie anymore because of that experience. So,
do you want me to be honest with you?
Mm-hmm.
I watched it recently, and I didn't really care for it.
Yeah, you know what? I never saw it. I mean, I saw my scene from me and Hal Holbrook's scene, and I really liked that scene. But I felt no reason to see it, but it does have a following. It's weird.
The only thing I could think of is the bear costume. That's it. Like, all the characters do stupid things, like separate.
Yeah. You know, it's like really, it's interesting because I did an off-Broadway play a couple of years ago, and a person came out afterwards and wanted me to autograph the playbill, and I said, oh, sure. And then he said to me, Miss Alda, you didn't put... What was the name of the film we were talking about?
Girls' Night Out.
Girls' Night Out. Okay, see, I forgot it already. He said, you did not put Girls' Night Out in your Playbill resume. He said, you need to put Girls' Night Out in. That's my favorite film. And I kind of was done. I said, okay. Well, thank you for telling me. Okay.
Yeah.
Of all the films I've done, I did not expect that to be a favorite film, but you know what? People are different. They're interesting. I didn't want to put him down. I thought that movie really moved him in some way. You know, that's great. That's great.
I would like to ask you about Julie Montgomery and Lauren Marie Taylor. Of course, it just did Friday the 13th Part 2 before this. Yeah.
They're both nice women. They're just nice. Julie was in my acting class with my teacher, Paul Mann, who is now no longer with us. But I sort of got to know her a little bit in my acting class, and she left to go to Los Angeles.
Okay.
So, I mean, I really didn't. When you have 3 days of filming, you're sleep deprived, and so you don't really have time to interact with other actors. You just don't have the time. So you just chug through it. But they're both nice women, so I have nothing bad to say about them. And all the actors in the film were nice. The ones I got to know or meet with very briefly, because, like I said, in 3 days of shooting, you're working like practically 20 hours a day, and you don't have time to socialize.
Well, I wasn't a huge fan of this film either, but I'll say one thing: you did have a little bigger part in this, and a kind of a peculiar part too. So, of course, you got.
I love that. I love my scene with Hal. That is a good scene. I had that on my reel for the longest time, and I loved it. So I mean, there's memories that are good. And the memories of working with the actors are good. So I have no bad memories about that. It's just bad memory is about being cheated
Yep.
out of your money and your paycheck. That's my bad memory.
And then, of course, you had a broader role in the Amityville 2, The Possession. I've interviewed Diane Franklin's.
Oh yeah, she's a sweetheart. Well, I star with Burt Young in it, and he's working with Damiano Damiani, who was a brilliant Italian director, made a lot of classic Italian films. Working with him was probably one of the best horror film experiences I've had, because he didn't want to do just a regular cut and dry. He wanted to make it deeper on a family that's disintegrating because and falling apart because of this force in this house. So you see that dysfunction, the family become more and more dysfunctional. That's Damiano. His take on it was to make it, more. And I think that's the film that's now become the horror legend, so to speak. The horror film legend, Amityville 2. It's just grown and grown in terms of, I think people really, I get feedback from that movie all the time from people that I don't know, and it's one of their favorite horror films. So it was fun. It was working with a good, really wonderful director makes a big difference. I think he tries to add another kind of depth or dimension to the story.
Yes. And, of course, Diane Franklin I've interviewed. I've had her daughter on here as well. So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She looks just like Diane. Well, not just like it, but very similar. It's really interesting. Well, Diane's a sweetheart. She's a sweetheart. She's in the new one that came out, Amityville Murders or something.
Oh, yes. Absolutely, yeah.
I think it's gone straight to, I don't know. I don't think it got released. I think it went straight to what do you call it when you get it on television? And
I don't know.
Yeah, you get it on some like Hulu or one of those things. I think it went straight into television. And I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it. I probably won't see it either.
Well,
it's one of those things. Well, I don't know. If you do a remake, I'm not interested in seeing it unless it's better than the original movie. But I thought for a horror film, Amityville 2, The Possession is a pretty darn good film.
Yes. The incest theme was kind of disturbing, though. But
well, he wanted to make things disturbing.
Yeah.
See, that was the whole point.
Yeah.
And he wanted to make things, the director, he wanted to make things psychologically disturbing because he thought psychologically that's where the real disturbance is, not in some ghoul and dripping blood. That's fun too. I'm not taking away from that. That can be a lot of fun. But he wanted to make the movie a psychologically disturbing movie, and I think he did.
Yes. And a lot of people cite that as the favorite for the Amityville horrors.
Yeah. I mean, I get it all the time on Facebook. I really get really positive feedback, and that movie opened to horrible reviews.
Mm-hmm.
But over the years, it's one of those, how things change, and all of a sudden people find a film, and it's supposedly the favorite of all the Amityville movies, which is kind of fun. You look back and you think, oh, somebody really enjoyed it and is constantly scared by it. Somebody said, oh, I saw it again and it still terrified me, and I thought, well, that's good. Right? I mean, that's what you see horror films for. You want to get scared, you want to get scared for that hour and a half or whatever. So, I mean, this is genre for it, and people love it, and I think it's great.
Yeah, and of course, for anybody listening that doesn't know, of course, Amityville 2 is a prequel to the original film.
Yes.
So, yep.
Yes.
Yep. Because the beginning of the original film, you kind of get these little flashbacks of what happened. But I love the fact that the director went back and decided to flesh out that story. And, of course, you still hear about Amityville in other movies. Like, I think it was the latest Insidious, cited that. I think that was it.
Oh, okay. Well, I know that people are forever going out to seeing the house in Amityville because of the neighborhood complaints. I've read the neighbors complain about the traffic in and out, photographing the house. So, I mean, it's become kind of a cult thing, which is, kind of amazing.
Yep. Yeah, well, next time I go to Toronto, I'm going to try to find the Black Christmas house.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
you never know. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. It's an interesting thing.
And
they changed the windows. The new owners changed the windows on the Amityville house, so they no longer look like the eyes. I think they put in regular windows in hopes of discouraging people.
Oh, come on! Why would they? Oh, come on!
They don't want the traffic. No. Those windows are gone. I saw a picture of it.
Oh. Oh well.
Yeah. There's enough pictures floating around the internet on
there you
the
go.
Little house, yeah.
And of course, we've got to talk about Christmas Evil.
Well, you know what? I have very little memory of that movie.
Yeah, you're only seen briefly too.
I'm seen very briefly, and I mean, I don't have a bad experience about it. I just don't have a lot of memories on it. So I think people that worked on that movie longer probably are the people that have the memories of that film.
Yes, and of course, this is the 1981 Razzie-winning Worst Picture, Mommie, Dearest.
Yes, and they didn't invite me to the Razzie Awards. How disappointing that was. I would have gone.
That was really, really early for them too.
Yeah, they should have invited me.
Well, I'm glad you would have went because apparently, I guess Faye Dunaway threw a public fit. From what I've heard, she threw a public fit when she found out she was nominated for Worst Actress.
Well, you got to have fun with this stuff. I would have showed up. I would have had fun with it.
Yeah.
Brought some roses and thrown them at people. I don't know what I would have done. But I didn't get an invite, darn. So, now that is that's probably the biggest cult film of our time now. It overtook the other one with, Susan Sarandon. What's the other one, the other cult film, but they go to the house.
Rocky Horror Picture Show?
Rocky Horror, yeah, it's overtaken Rocky Horror now, which is like such a shock. Honestly, when you're it's such a surprising shock when you made a movie so many years ago and it's grown bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger every year. And it's just amazing, the legs on this movie. Because of the legs on this movie, well, at first I didn't know that it had become this cult thing until a few years ago when Hedda Lettuce, who is a brilliant comedian in New York, she hosts the Mommie Dearest things once a year, usually at Halloween. She's the funniest comedian. She makes comments to the whole movie, and you just die laughing. Well, she invited me a few years ago to the Ziegfeld Theater, which is no more, but it was a big theater, 1,800 seats, and the place was full, and I was her guest talking about it, and people wanted to know about it. So I said, well, I have this diary I wrote. I just kept notes just to keep my sanity, so I started keeping notes and everybody went crazy about the diary. Everybody wanted to know about the diary. So then after that, I was invited to the Castro Theater in San Francisco, a very famous theater, beautiful, beautiful old theater, about another around 1,800 seats, a huge theater. And so Mark Hustis was producing, he produces these events on these different movies and brings people in, so he brought me in. And so I had part of my diary, just a little bit of it, and I read it to 1,800 men, and they went crazy and went no more. They were laughed. It was a really wonderful event. I felt so loved at that event. It was just great. I have such a great memory of that event at the Castro, and so I thought, people said, you got to write this book. You got to write this book. Well, the book is written, really. I mean, the book is the first part of my book, the Mommie Dearest Diary, is, oh, by the way, I'm going to plug it. So it's on Amazon.com.
Yeah.
It's available only on Amazon. So the first part of the book is about my life and how I got into the business and sort of like memories of the different directors I've worked with. And then the second main part of it is the actual diary, which is pretty much word for word what happened each day during the 4 months of the shooting, which it makes you realize that how a film, a wonderful director, a great producer, a big star, and how it all went south. So you don't understand. You can't. I can't encapsulate it in a couple of words because it takes that 4-month journey to kind of get it. And so it's published and it's done very well. It's got 5-star reviews from 500 or 600 people on Amazon. So that's been a nice journey. I mean that was so it's every person that's interested in how a film is made and what happens behind the scenes will enjoy this book because it has, you kind of get to know what happens, because a lot of people think, oh, it's all glamour, it's all just glamorous, and it isn't. It's a lot of other stuff that's going on with the hairdressers, in my book, with the hairdressers, the makeup people, this whole entourage of people behind there. So it's very interesting to get an insight on how a film is made from my book, and that's why I think people are really responding to it.
Yes, and of course, everybody remembers the coat hanger, Joan Crawford, I guess, was apparently was quite a nightmare. So I don't know.
Christina Crawford's original book, which was the one that broke the barrier for the tell-all on the Star, was the basis for the story, although the story turned around and it became about Joan Crawford, I think, in the movie. In the book, it was more about the little girl. In the movie, it's a lot about Joan Crawford, the star, and her. And then Christina's, of course, is also a central character. But it's just, she had a hard, everybody has challenges in their childhood, and some people are, and things stick with you when you have, you grew up in a very wealthy home, but this doesn't mean it's easy.
No.
And the challenges that Christina had, of course, were dealing with a famous parent who has a lot going on besides being a mother.
Yes, and of course you were also in The Glass House with Lily Sobieski.
Yeah, that was sweet. Yeah, the director on that was a lovely man. He had directed me in a Law and Order episode, and basically I got the part because he wanted to work with me again, and it was great. I mean, she's a lovely young actress, beautiful girl, and I think she moved to New York. I think she married and has a couple of kids. I'm not positive, but that's what I read. So people's lives, take turns. It's like all of our lives, we have different chapters, and then we go to another chapter in our lives, another chapter. And then when you look back, you get at my age, and you look back, and you think, well, this was interesting. That was a new chapter, and that took a new turn. And that life is very interesting that way. I think life, the journey of our lives, is fascinating. How things come in and take a different turn. We go here, we go there, and but I had a really nice time working on The Glass House. With lovely people, and just it's a very small supporting role I have there. So, but sometimes those roles are nice, and just enjoy the people more, I think.
Well, you've also done a number of non-horror related films too, and of course, one that stands right out, of course, is the Academy Award-winning The Deer Hunter. Yeah, what was that experience like?
Fantastic, absolutely fabulous. When I finished that film, and the guys were going off to shoot overseas, and I was going home. I stood in the lobby of that hotel and I cried. It was like the end of a family almost. I loved working on that film, even though it was 125 degrees, and we wore winter clothing, and I wore my bridal dress. My wedding dress never got dry. It was always damp because the humidity was so great. But, in spite of all those physical challenges, it was really a collaborative effort with all my colleagues in the film, I think Bobby, at that time, was the only star, and everybody else, it was we were just all really a good team of actors that I think we all worked together really well as colleagues and telling the story, and I'm really proud of this movie. It's one of the few films that when they sent us out, when the film opened, they sent different actors out to different towns on the openings. And it was I think it's the only film that I've ever been in that people and families and veterans came up to me afterwards and cried and said, this movie has enabled me to speak to my family about my experience. I've never been able to speak about my Vietnam experience before. And wives said, you've opened up, my husband has opened up to me, and it's because of this film. And I think it was a different take on the Vietnam War, that because they're small town people, and you see how small towns and the very crux of this country is the small towns, that how they were affected by the war on a very deep and personal level without preaching. You see, it wasn't preachy. It wasn't hitting you over the head like some of the films do. That you get it, you get it, you get it. And I feel like I've been hit over the head when I get it right away. But I feel that Deer Hunter didn't do that, and that's why people's hearts open to it.
Yeah, and of course, Robert De Niro, fresh after Taxi Driver, delivered another knockout performance, and of course, Christopher Walken. Nobody can forget that powerful scene of the Russian roulette. Yeah.
Well, this was Christopher's breakout film, I think.
Yeah.
He'd done stuff before, but it really was his breakout film. It was great. And in a way, it was Meryl's. It was only her second film. I think she had a small part in Julia, and this was only her second film. So this was a breakout film for her too. So
yes,
all these wonderful actors.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, you were in Rocky 2. What was it like working with Sylvester Stallone as a director?
Well, it was very fast. I was only in that film for 2 days. He's very fast. He's very quick. He does one or two takes and he moves on. One or two takes and he moves on. So he was nice. He was a nice guy. I ran into him last year when he was up for the Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor for the
Creed.
What was it called?
Creed.
Yeah, he was wonderful in it. By the way, I thought he was wonderful. So I ran into him at Patsy's. I'm a member of the Academy, so we had a little lunch for him, and he remembered. He was very warm and very sweet, and I have a picture of him and me together somewhere. But he's nice. But when somebody works that fast, also the movie just goes fast. So because I wasn't on it that long, I just have I have a good experience. But I didn't really get into hanging out, so to speak.
And of course, you were in The Last Exit to Brooklyn. You get to work with Jennifer Jason Leigh. I love her.
Great, yeah, she's terrific. She's really terrific. Well, we shot my scene in Munich, Germany. They only did the exteriors in Brooklyn, and then the rest of the film was done with Germany because it was German money that produced it. So. It was very quick. I had two scenes. One scene was the dramatic scene with both my sons. And actually, Clive Barnes of the New York Times, when he reviewed that movie, picked out my scene as the scene he loved in the movie. So that was an unexpected, nice review. But it was just, it was... because I had two scenes, I think it was on it for like 3 days. So one of the scenes got cut with the other brother, and which was a very nice scene too. But movies get cut. That's the thing. You never know whether you're in or not. But the lovely scene that was left in was I was very happy about it.
And of course, we mentioned in the Razzies earlier. Of course, you were in Prancer, and I guess that got struck with.
Did that get a Razzie too? I didn't know. Did it?
I don't know whether it won a Razzie or not, but I know it was hit with nominations.
Oh, I didn't know that. I had no idea. Well, that's a sweet movie. That's a sweet Christmas movie. It's perennial Christmas. And you know what? I worked with Sam Elliott. I played his sister. So I mean, Sam is a joy to work with.
Yeah.
He's just a lovely man. And I was, we shot it somewhere in Indiana, north by the lake. And I think it's a sweet movie. I think where the things that cut out between me and Sam as adults, talking about his wife who had died, and really a wonderful scene that got cut. I think that was a mistake, because I think the couple of adult scenes that we had together, Sam and I, were important. That that's what made the difference in Miracle on 34th Street, where you have the actual adult problem issues, and then you have the little kid. I think the director made a mistake in just focusing only on the kid and leaving out the adults, basically. But it is a sweet movie. It's an uplifting movie, and it's sweet. And it's a real Christmas movie. Let's put it that way. It really is a nice Christmas movie.
Speaking of Christmas movies, you were in The Ref.
Yes, I was in The Ref. Yeah, and it was shot in Canada, Montreal. I had a much bigger part, but they changed the ending. Last minute, they reshot the ending. Originally, the part was, first of all, when Richard Bright, my late husband, comes on the boat, and because they're looking for the boat to make a getaway, then he kind of gets smitten with me. We have a lovely scene, and Dennis O'Leary, and we all become friends. And when he goes to jail, when he gets out of jail, he writes a hit book, and he goes on the Montiel Williams show to talk about it. We're all there with him before he goes on. It's a some funny stuff between Dennis and I and Richard and I think one other actor. But it's just that's what I mean about editing. All of a sudden you're edited out, the editing scene is out, and you're gone. But Ted Demme was a lovely man, and I had done another movie with him, a movie that we called The Gun, and after that, and so he considered me a part of his little rep company. He liked to work with actors, use the same actors again, and then of course he died so early. It was like he was in his 30s playing basketball, and he collapsed.
Yeah.
And I thought, holy moly. Another great guy gone, and a young guy, and a guy that I would have had a future with, because there's certain directors you love to work with, and they understand you, they understand your work. It's easy, and Ted was one of them, and it was just really so. I went to his not his funeral, but his wake, and everybody felt that way about Ted.
Yeah, and. Yeah, it was an interesting premise, the bickering couple and the burglar who gets
Kevin Spacey and Judy
Davis.
Oh my God, what a wonderful actress she is! She's just terrific. She just does things every once in a while that she likes to do. Her television thing of Judy Garland was just amazing. It was a few years ago, 5-10 years ago, but she did the Judy Garland story, and unbelievably talented, this woman.
I was just looking through your credits on Internet Movie Database. You were uncredited for a lot of stuff early in your career, and I just noticed Hello, Dolly with Barbra Streisand.
Yeah, well, I was her photo double.
Okay.
I was a photo double, and I was also a street person. I got directed by Gene Kelly on one of those dance numbers, which was exciting. He was the sweetest man. But when you have a lot of actors like that, you go. Sometimes they don't list everybody, and I think the sad thing is, I think there's a SAG rule that if they have over 35 actors, something like that, then you don't have to list the others.
Okay.
So, if they had over 35 actors and I'm below the line, so to speak, of people that had, bigger parts, then you don't get listed. You don't get credited.
And Scarecrow, I mean, you get Gene Hackman, Al Pacino.
Yeah.
You had some good company in some of these movies.
Oh, yeah, great actors, wonderful people, lovely to work with. Gene was funny and had a great sense of humor. We hung out. That's a movie you got to hang out a little bit before my scenes. So we got to hang out in the restaurant, the bar, and Al I've known for a long time. So I mean, these are major talents. I mean, these are great actors to work with. Makes it easy.
I'm going to ask you a hard question. What was your greatest film experience?
Well, you know what? That is a hard question because every experience for me, except for the ones that I'm only on for a few days on, every experience is a film experience is unique.
Mm-hmm.
So and loving, a lot of times loving and creative and fun. So I don't have one that stands out, honestly. It's like there's some, of course, that stand out more than others, but I always think that what I'm on now is the film. Like I just did a film called All the Lights Are Out with a new director called Michael Taylor Jackson. It's a short film.
Okay.
But it was such a great experience working on it. We worked intensely on it. I was out in the Monterey area. I just came back last week. And for a week, it was just me and Philip Botello, who played my son. It was a two-character thing. And because it was the two of us, you don't get any time off. You're always on, you're always on the set. But the time off was afterwards when we were in the house, and one of the crew cooked for us. He's a great cook, and hanging out with the actors. I mean, that was a terrific experience. I can't equate it with the other experiences, but I loved it and loved working on the film. And so I can't number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can either say I love this experience, or this experience wasn't long enough, or I wasn't on this movie long enough, but I had a good time, or I had a terrible time. But usually it's 99% of the time I have a good time, whether it's a short thing like a couple of days, or whether it's a long, intense thing. Or there was this film that I just did, All the Lights Are Out, where it was intense for 5-6 days, but it was good. It was a good intense. It was like the director was terrific, and the other actor was terrific, and so I mean I can't say one stands above it all. I think I'm in the moment of that experience at that moment, and that's the experience.
Would you say Girls' Night Out was your worst?
Well, Girls' Night Out wasn't a bad experience shooting it. It was just a long 3 days of long and hard. It wasn't a bad experience shooting it. The bad experience was that I didn't get paid.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no I have no criticism about shooting it. I loved working with Hal and the other actress. The actress is Julie, and the other one. But I mean, that was fine. Working with them was lovely. It's just that the part that sticks in my mouth is the one that, you stole the actress' salary.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. But the work experience actually was fun. It was very intense and long. I remember being sleepless because a 3-day shoot on a film is unbelievably fast.
Do you have any charities you're involved in?
Yes, I'm an animal advocate.
Mm-hmm.
So I support the Humane Society, support ASPCA, and I support local ones that there's one out in Long Island, and so I do that, and also I support Boys Town.
Okay.
because I think they've made a huge difference to a lot of boys and girls now. So those are my three or four main charities. But I love animals, and I'm a huge animal advocate for abused animals, and I think we should have no-kill shelters everywhere. I don't think a shelter that kills is a shelter.
Nope.
And I write letters to the congressman all the time about this, by the way. I think it takes 5 minutes to write a congressman. I encourage everybody out there just to take 5 minutes of your life and advocate for no-kill shelters and no puppy mills. I think that that's worth your 5 minutes, because I get letters back from Congress people and saying thank you for your input, yada yada. But if it's just one person writing, it still makes a difference. But if it's all of a sudden you get 200 or 300 people writing, it makes a big difference, and they start to pay attention. And in some states, there is stronger laws for abuse than in other states. And I think anybody who abuses an animal should get jail time. I think they should be sent to jail, unquestionably. I think these ramifications of animal abuse go into child abuse, go into all kinds of wife abuse, spousal abuse. I think abuse is a horrendous thing, and when you abuse an animal, that's even more horrendous, because an animal is just a loving little soul, and you take advantage of an innocent being that is not able that doesn't have a voice. It has a voice, a barking voice or a mewing voice, but it doesn't have a voice to go out and tell somebody just hit me. So I'm very big on that, and I encourage anybody listening to take 5 minutes out of your life and write about this to your Congress people, to your representatives, and especially if you're in an area that has kill shelters. We're in a terrible area in New York City.
Oh.
Brooklyn is one of the highest kill shelters. They kill right away. They many times they kill within 18 hours. I think it's horrendous. And I think New York City is just the worst in terms of animal care. And so I'm constantly writing, and there's it's not like I'm writing every day, but once a month or something, I shoot an email out.
Well, here's something I will recommend to you. I learned this from listening to Howard Stern. He and his wife, Beth Ostrowski Stern, are involved with a charity called the North Shore Animal League.
Yes, I'm aware of the North Shore Animal League also.
Yeah, I've donated to that before, and I know they're heavily involved with it. That sounds like a great charity right there.
Yeah, I used to give to them, but then when I brought 2 stray cats in, little baby cats, his mother was killed, they wouldn't take the little cats. They turned me away. And I said, these are young. They're 6 weeks old, and the mother was run over by a car, and I brought them out, and I thought they would take them. And they didn't take them. So I was stuck because I was going away on location, and so who took them? My vet. My vet took them.
Okay.
And they got adopted out. They were 2 little orange things. And so I stopped supporting them after that. And I actually wrote the president or whoever, and she did send me back a letter of apology. But I said, how can you turn this? You're a charity. How can you turn these people down? How can you turn me down? When I'm making the trip, it's an hour of my time to go out there with 2 little cats in a case. And so I'm hoping mine was an exception. I hope because of that, because I wrote her and she wrote me back, and she says she's going to talk to the people working there. I hope it did make a difference, and I hope that they do change that policy, because up until then I was supporting them, but then I stopped supporting them.
Okay.
And I support Bide-A-Wee instead, because they also take them. There's a lot of people to support. I'm sure that North Shore does good work. It's just that I had that personal experience, so that's what happened to me.
Well, my parents have an Australian Shepherd that they love, and they took that in, and I've got a cat that I love. And my brother and his fiance had 2 ferrets. They've since passed away, but talk about nosy creatures.
Oh, yeah. I think animals are absolutely make my day. I mean, when I come home and if anything's happened, I'm sad. My little two fur balls greet me. In fact, Popeye's right here on the table, wanting to be petted, and you just look at them, and it just makes your life better. I think animals are just God's gift to us, and
I agree.
And appreciating them and loving them. I think what was that study that was done? If you hold an animal, your blood pressure goes down. They've actually studied that if you're upset or something and you have an animal, you hold it for 5 or 10 minutes. They actually studied that your blood pressure drops.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was interesting. But I can't, my son also has 2 cats. He grew up with cats. But
yeah.
I would have a dog, but my lifestyle wouldn't be good for a dog, because a lot of times I'm gone for 10 hours a day, and that would be cruel for the dog. But the cats they seem to be fine, but then when I come home, they've got their litter box. It's not like that. But when I come home, they need their love. They want their love. I spend a good 15 minutes with them when I come home, and they want to get petted, and it's sweet. It's really nice. I like Popeye right now. He's prancing around. He just loves being petted. And it feels good. I love animals.
I used to let my cat sleep with me until it became impossible. Yeah, he wouldn't let me sleep. Yeah. Coco sleeps on top of my head. When I go in to sleep, she's on top of my head and my hair, and then she goes and finds her spot in the pillow next to me now. But then she wakes up. When I wake up, she goes back to my head. So it's like they all have their little, they all have their little things. And Popeye in the morning comes right on my chest, right at where my heart is, and he lays down for like 10, 15 minutes and listens to my heart while he gets petted. So. Well, there you go. Yeah. Well, I love animals as well.
Yeah,
even exotic animals.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are into them. A lot of people like snakes.
I'm a snake lover.
You are?
I love snakes. That's my DJ name, is Python.
Python. Well, my late husband loved snakes. He had, before we met, he had Spotty, his big snake, that he would take care of, and then eventually the snake died. But he was into snakes, and he was never into cats until he met my cat, and then he got into cats. So. But, it's like I just posted a lady that's found a little baby raccoon, now has gotten into raccoons. The raccoon and her dog are best friends. They go everywhere together. So, they're all wonderful. You look at an animal, look at them in the eye, and they're just amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You got any web pages or anything you want to plug on here?
Do I have what kind of pages, honey?
A web page?
I don't have a web page.
Okay.
So I don't have one. Oh, the only plugging is my book. I think people will interested in film, and that will give them an insight into film. And some of it is very funny. It's not all. It's funny. It's like the girl. Let me give you an example. Because I write about the different people. Like the wig person was Vivian Walker, who's very famous, done Joan Crawford in real life, and Vivian Lee, and Merle Oberon, and all these people. She was brought out of retirement to do the wigs, and then Faye decided she didn't want Vivian. She liked the Goldie Hawn's wigs and Private Benjamin. Well, and she hired the lady that did the Goldie Hawn's wigs. But the problem was this is a 1940s film, and Goldie Hawn's hairdo isn't gonna work on Joan Crawford. So a lot of that is funny, you describe, and the lady that doesn't know how to do wigs, so she's trying to do Vivian's wigs, but she doesn't. And so now she comes to Vivian and says, "I don't know how to do wigs." So Vivian winds up having to do her wigs without credit. So there's lots of interesting behind-the-scenes stories. So on Mommie, Dearest diary, and so on Amazon. That's my plug.
Do you ever do the conventions?
I've done 2,
and
they were both very good experiences. I had lots of people. That's why I found out that especially Amityville 2, everybody loves. Everybody went to that one sign convention in, where was it, somewhere in New Jersey. They love that thing. And then I get Mommie, Dearest, and Amityville 2 are the big things that the people at the conventions like.
Okay. What is the most unusual thing you've ever been asked to sign?
Not really. Everybody wants posters or pictures signed.
Okay.
No body parts.
I hear a lot of body parts get signed, and then their name is tattooed on the spot.
Yeah, I've seen that in some of the people that came up to me. They would say, "Oh, this I tattooed this." They signed it, and I tattooed. And they would actually show me the tattoo. And one of them was on someone's leg, and it was an amazing tattoo. I said, "Oh, holy moly, that's like a work of art." So, yeah, that's what I've seen. Not my stuff, of course. I just signed it, but that's the most amazing thing that I've seen at the two conventions that I did was the tattoos.
Okay.
Yeah, and some of, like I said, a couple of them were wow, woo, wow, that's amazing. So, but nobody's asked me to tattoo. Nobody's asked me to sign their name on the body part so they can tattoo it. That was other people. So, yeah, it's very interesting. I haven't done one lately in a couple of years because the one in New Jersey was fun, but it's like it's a 3-day thing and you have to commute back and forth. It's like an hour and a half commute each way, so it's like a 3-hour thing. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of it was long days, 3 long days, but it was fun. Meeting the people was super fun.
Okay, perfect. Well, what do you have coming up in the future?
Well, I've written a play called USA, the Land of the Mustaches.
Okay.
And I'm sending it out to some theaters in New York. And I've gotten a couple of bump ups from first read. That's past the first read, goes on the second read. So I'm hoping that one of them will work, and I can get a chance to do it for 4 or 6 weeks somewhere. It's a solo show. It's a one-person show. So that's my biggest thing right now is to get my play done. Somewhere in New York and see what happens. Okay.
Any film projects coming up?
No, the one I finished is All the Lights Out is Michael Taylor Jackson is going to enter it in film festivals. So, but who knows? You know, the thing about acting is you can get a call tomorrow and you're off somewhere. So it's very unpredictable profession. You can be doing nothing for 6 months and then all of a sudden 3 things come up. That's happened to me actually. 3 offers come in at the same time for the same weeks or months, and then you have to choose one, and then nothing for another 6 months, and 2 offers come in. So it's just you never know. It's you never know what's going to happen.
Well, you know what? I like the fact that you've had some bigger parts in like Amityville, To the Possession, and Girls' Night Out, but you've also done a lot of smaller roles in some very highly sought-out films, and you've got quite the credit list of films. And even though you had smaller roles, you've had some really good experiences. You're not looking for fame; you're looking for an experience, and really, acting and performing like that should be an experience.
Well, I'm kind of grateful that fame kind of passed me by. I think people that become famous become prisoners. They really are become prisoners, and so I'm kind of grateful that Albert Finney said the same thing. He just died recently, a great actor. He never wanted to be famous. He wanted to be a good actor, and that's how I've always thought of myself. I never wanted to become famous because there's a lot, you pay a price for fame. Yeah. And I it's not in my nature to pay that price. I like to be anonymous. Yeah. I like to watch people. I don't want to have people watch me. I mean, I'm a certain especially the Law and Orders I've done. People in subway do come up to me and said, "I just saw you in this Law and Order and loved it," and that's fine. It's always delightful. On the bus, I get pegged a lot, but I don't get pegged so much that my privacy is lost.
Yeah.
I still have my privacy, and for me, that's who I am. So I mean, God bless people at stars. I couldn't do it. I'd probably be on drugs and booze before. I think it would just have destroyed me. And I was aware of that in the beginning. I was pretty conscious of that. So I've seen enough people go through a lot of things that became famous.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I'm my heart goes with them, but that was never my goal. My goal was always just to be an actor and create a part and work that way. And my ambition was not to be famous. And I think it saved me. I think I have a pretty normal, good life, and I'm a very compassionate person. So I think it saved what I chose early on. Part of me knew that was the best for me, and I've never regretted it.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I've had an author on here 2 or 3 times, and good guy, but he's got his writing's going to be turned into a movie, and he had was sending me the press release and this and that, and my interview with him was attached to it, and I was like, oh, that's great, And he said, he made the comment, we're going to be famous together. And I really stalled on that comment. And I said, look, I'm happy to do a good interview, and I like the way to pay my bills and be content with what I'm doing with my podcast. He said, then I said, I don't want to be famous. And he said, fame will cover a lot of, will bring, I don't forget what he said, but something to do with fortune that he needs or blah, blah, blah. But I think Bill Murray put it best. Try being rich and see if that solves most of your trouble.
You know what? It sounds good to me, but it doesn't solve anything. People wind up having all kinds of other problems. And I think if that's one's focus, and this is happening with young actors today, mm-hmm. Everybody wants to be famous, and it makes me very sad that they don't want to be good actors. They just want to be famous. My goal when I started out, and I came to New York, I studied with every famous teacher here in New York, and my goal was always to be a good actor. My goal was never to be famous, but in this generation, this new generation, it's about being famous. I had an incident where I was working on this film a couple of years ago, a lot of young people, and nobody was studying, and I was shocked. And then my friend asked me if I would coach this girl, because occasionally I do coaching, because I taught for a while, for about half a year, took over somebody's class and taught, had a really great experience, in that people told me that I really helped them. That was the best part of it. But she said, can you do a private coaching with her? And I said, well, I really am not sure. She said, do me a favor and do this. I said, okay. So we talked on the phone, and I said, well, just bring in a monologue or something that we could work on. I said, there's plenty of monologues. She said, I don't know any monologues. I said, go down to Drama Bookshop. There's a book of monologues for women of your age. Go down and just pick one that resonates with you. So she comes in to work with me. She didn't get the book. She didn't get any monologues. She came in without a monologue, and she says to me, the first words out of her mouth is, I want to be famous.
Oh.
And I looked at her. I was kind of shocked. I looked at her and I said, well, I can't help you with that. That's between you and God. Yeah. And then I found out she didn't have brought anything. So I just said, I said, I'm not going to charge you for my time, but I don't think I'm the right person to work with you on this.
Yeah.
So I just got up and left, and she got up and left, and I was kind of dumbstruck, because that is today's mentality with a lot of young people, and it makes me very, very sad.
Yeah, and one thing I responded to that guy, I said that, and this is an older gentleman, but I said, fame, I've seen too many examples of fame ruining people. I mean, John Belushi, Robin Williams, some of these people come to mind,
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. And more people than you know, even, because it doesn't come out right away. But no, that's a terrible goal. It's not. It's a goal that will really possibly and probably hurt you and not be good for you, because I think it's just important to do good work. And, and be happy there. With if that's your legacy, that's your legacy. You say, hey, it's pretty good in that movie. I worked hard to,
Yeah.
But no, I am not a fame person. I mean, just work and be able to make a living is I'm happy with that. I'm basically a very happy person. I mean, I'm not an unhappy person. I don't consider my life miserable. I mean, I get up in the morning. Every day I get up, I say, I'm breathing and walking and talking. I say, thank you, God, for another day.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. This day, and my friend Leon, my best friend Leon Jusen, who's in the Academy, he's a great animator. He's coming over later to hang out, make him a cup of coffee. I mean, that's as good as it gets for me.
And you know what? You've done some really notable films. It's not like you were in you've had a lot of small roles, but boy, look at the stuff you were in. It's like you were in a lot of stuff that's got cult followings.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So it's always a surprise when that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. People always. A couple of people said to me on these Mommie, Dearest book signings that I've had. They said, well, did you know this movie is... I said, no, I didn't know it was going to be... This is as big a surprise to me as it is to you. Or maybe you were ahead of it, because I didn't discover that it was a cult movie until about maybe about 7 years ago, maybe 6-7 years ago. My friend Leon just came in. Hi, Leon.
I'll wrap up here in just a minute.
Yeah.
One more question.
Yeah.
When you were on the set of The Stuff, did Larry Cohen give you any yogurt or ice cream?
No, he didn't.
Gee, all that yelling and no dessert?
No, he's probably a nice man to get to know him. I mean, I just didn't get to know him. And he's made some good films.
Yep.
So bless him. I hope his career continues. I don't hold any against him. I really don't. I have no vendetta. In fact, I look back now and I think it's funny.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I was just too young then to really appreciate it. But as I get older, I appreciate it more.
Well, Rutanya, I was so happy to have you come on here today, and happy that comedian Tommy Kovac had recommended you to me.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Thank you.
Yeah. Before I let you go, would you mind very much doing a plug for my show?
Sure, I'll do a plug for your show.
Yeah.
Python, right?
Yep.
With a snake.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, sure, I'll do that. Let's see if it works.
Okay. Go.
Hi, my name is Rutanya Alda, and I'm listening to the great Greg Gilbert on Python Paradise.
You know what? It was wonderful having you on and talking about all your films. And yeah, you're very contented. And I want to just say God bless you and thank you so much for your time.
Well, God bless you, Greg, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it. And take care up there in New Brunswick, one of the spectacular places of the world.